You can't embarrass a woman with an empty bank account if she has already learned how to survive without you. Claire Bennett would remember that thought later, though at the time all she heard was the soft electronic chirp of the card reader rejecting her payment. Declined. The word glowed red beneath her fingers. Around her, the Ashford Academy Charity Gala shimmered with crystal glasses, white roses, and the low hum of wealthy parents discussing summer houses and private tutors. Claire tried the card again. Another chirp. Declined. The volunteer behind the table lowered her voice. Mrs. Bennett, it's the deposit for Sophie's medical science trip. We can hold her place until Monday. Claire nodded once. Thank you. She reached for her wallet, already knowing the second card had less room than the first. Then laughter drifted across the ballroom. Ethan, her ex-husband, stood beneath a gold banner with one hand resting lightly against Lauren's waist. Navy tuxedo. Polished shoes. A new silver watch catching the chandelier light every time he moved his wrist. 10 minutes earlier, the headmaster had thanked him publicly for a $10,000 donation. Claire had clapped with everyone else. Now Ethan noticed her at the payment table. His eyes dropped to the card reader, then to the envelope in her hand. He understood immediately. He always had a talent for recognizing weakness when it belonged to someone else. Problem? He asked, approaching with Lauren beside him. Claire slipped the card back into her wallet. No. Ethan glanced at the volunteer. Sophie's trip. The woman looked uncomfortable. Claire answered before she could. I said I'll handle it. His smile barely moved. You always say that. A few nearby conversations softened. Not stopped. Softened. The way rooms do when people want to listen without appearing cruel. Claire felt the edge of the envelope press into her palm. Ethan leaned closer. His cologne was the same one he had worn during the last year of their marriage. Expensive cedar and something cold. Maybe stop living above your means. Lauren looked away. That hurt more than laughter would have. Claire's phone vibrated inside her clutch. She already knew what it was. Her attorney had promised an update before 7. She opened the message. No payment received. 6 months overdue. Ethan had ignored the latest notice. Claire lifted her eyes from the screen to the watch on his wrist. $12,000, perhaps more. Enough to cover Sophie's trip, her dental bill, and every support payment he had missed since January. Ethan followed her gaze and casually adjusted his cuff. Don't make a scene, Claire. For 1 second, something old moved inside her. A memory of midnight spreadsheets, cold coffee, Sophie crying in the next room, while Claire corrected Ethan's sales presentation because he had an interview at 8. A memory of selling her mother's bracelet when rent came due. A memory of him, years later, standing in their kitchen and saying she had never built anything of her own. Claire folded the attorney's message away with one tap. I'm not making a scene. Her voice was quiet enough that Ethan had to lean in to hear it. Then she smiled at the volunteer. Please hold Sophie's place until Monday. She turned and walked toward the ballroom doors. Behind her, Ethan was already laughing again. Near the far wall, an older woman in a charcoal silk suit watched Claire leave without touching her champagne. Margaret Hale had spent 30 years learning to recognize people under pressure. She had also spent the last 6 months searching for someone capable of saving her company. Claire did not see her. Not yet. Outside, the night air struck cool against her face. She stood beneath the hotel awning while black cars whispered over wet pavement. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was not her lawyer. It was Daniel Mercer. 3 words appeared on the screen. The seller agreed. Claire stared at them. Then a second message arrived. Due diligence starts Monday. Across the glass doors, Ethan raised his champagne while cameras flashed around his donation check. Claire looked at him for 3 silent seconds. Then she opened the confidential acquisition file on her phone. At the top of the first page was a company name she had seen before, though she could not yet remember where. Hale Meridian Group. 6 months was a long time to pretend a child did not cost money. By Sunday morning, Claire had learned exactly how far $38.14 could stretch. The refrigerator hummed in the small apartment kitchen while rain tapped against the window above the sink. Half a carton of milk. 3 eggs. Apples. A plastic container of pasta from Friday night. On the table, Sophie sat cross-legged in her pajamas, carefully pressing clear tape over the torn side of a ballet shoe. Mom, it's fine, she said. Ms. Parker won't notice. Claire looked at the tiny fingers smoothing the tape and felt her jaw lock. Give it to me. She found the sewing kit in the junk drawer, and threaded a needle beneath the yellow kitchen light. Sophie watched her. Dad said he's really busy. The needle stopped for half a second. I know. He said maybe next month. Claire pulled the thread through the satin. Tight. Clean. Precise. Then we'll handle this month. Her phone buzzed beside the fruit bowl. Another email from Ethan. She opened it with one hand. Regarding reimbursement request. Please provide itemized proof that Sophie's dental procedure is medically necessary rather than cosmetic. Claire read the sentence twice. Sophie's dentist had already sent the x-rays. The procedure was for a cracked molar. 8 years old, and Ethan wanted evidence that pain counted. Claire placed the phone face down. She had once known a different version of him. Or perhaps she had simply been too busy loving him to notice the original. 12 years earlier, their first apartment had smelled of burnt coffee and radiator heat. Ethan had owned 2 suits, one with a missing button. Claire had been halfway through her MBA when Sophie came earlier than planned, and Ethan received the interview that could change everything. For 3 nights, Claire sat at their second-hand kitchen table correcting his presentation while their newborn slept against her chest. At 2:14 in the morning, Ethan had kissed the top of her head. When I make it, we make it. She believed him. When rent came due 6 months later, Claire sold the gold bracelet her mother had left her. She told Ethan she had lost it. He never knew, or never asked. Years passed and small sacrifices no one photographed. Claire postponed school. Claire handled daycare. Claire rewrote proposals after midnight because Ethan said she was better with numbers. Then came promotions, better restaurants, a larger house, Lauren's name appearing too often on his phone. And finally, one winter evening, Ethan stood in the kitchen they had chosen together and said, almost gently, "You stopped becoming anything." Claire remembered the dishwasher running behind him, the soft mechanical hiss. Sophie coloring in the next room. She remembered looking at the man whose career carried fingerprints he could no longer see. The divorce took 11 months. Ethan kept the house. Claire kept Sophie most nights and moved into an apartment where the pipes knocked whenever someone upstairs showered. The first child support payment arrived late. The second arrived short. By the 4th month, nothing came at all. Yet Ethan's social media showed ski weekends, steak dinners, Lauren smiling from passenger seats of expensive cars. On Monday afternoon, Claire picked Sophie up from school. A folded paper waited in the child's backpack. Final reminder. Medical science trip deposit due today. Claire stood beside her old Honda while buses groaned through the wet parking lot. Her phone buzzed. Ethan again. This time it was a text. Stop using Sophie to pressure me. Claire's thumb hovered above the screen. Then another message appeared. If you think I owe you something, take me back to court. A final line followed. If you can afford it. Rain clicked softly against the windshield. Claire did not reply. She drove Sophie home, made grilled cheese, checked homework, waited until her daughter was asleep, then carried her laptop to the kitchen table. At 11:43, the apartment was silent except for the refrigerator hum. Claire opened the confidential Hale Meridian acquisition file. Hundreds of pages filled the screen. Debt schedules, vendor contracts, cash flow projections. She adjusted her glasses and began reading. Not because she had forgotten Ethan's message, because she had not. The cruelest people rarely raise their voices. Ethan Bennett preferred email. By Tuesday morning, Claire sat beneath the fluorescent lights of the county courthouse family services office with a paper cup of coffee cooling between her hands. The room smelled of wet coats, printer toner, and old carpet. Somewhere behind the glass partition, a copier coughed out page after page. A toddler cried near the elevators. Claire kept her eyes on the folder in her lap. 6 months of missing payments. Dental invoices. School notices. Bank statements. Every number arranged in clean chronological order. Her attorney, Rebecca Sloan, slid one page back across the table. You have a strong enforcement case. Claire nodded. How long? Rebecca hesitated. That was answer enough. Best case, several weeks. If he contests income, requests continuances, changes counsel, maybe months. Claire looked through the rain-streaked window at the gray courthouse steps. Ethan knew this. Of course he did. He had spent years in corporate sales learning that delay was sometimes more useful than refusal. Never say no when you can make the other person too tired to keep asking. Her phone vibrated. Ethan. She opened the message. Sophie needs consistency, Claire. Courtroom drama is not healthy for her. Claire's thumb went still. A second message arrived. You should think carefully before turning this into a war. Rebecca watched her face. What did he say? Claire locked the screen. Nothing new. She signed the preliminary forms, thanked Rebecca, and left without filing the emergency motion. Not because she was afraid. Because something about Ethan's confidence bothered her. Outside, rain hissed against the courthouse pavement. Her heels clicked down the stone steps as she replayed his words. If you can afford it. He did not sound like a man worried about consequences. He sounded like a man certain consequences belong to other people. At 1:10 that afternoon, Claire entered the offices of Mercer Row Capital with damp hair and the Hale Meridian file under her arm. The conference room on the 23rd floor was all glass, steel, and winter-colored sky. Daniel Mercer stood at the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled once. "Seller, open the books," he said. "Not all of them." Claire placed her folder on the table. Meaning Margaret Hale wants a buyer fast, but someone inside the company is making the numbers prettier than they are. Claire sat. The screen lit up with cash flow statements, debt schedules, vendor obligations. For the next 3 hours, the courthouse disappeared. So did Ethan. Claire moved through numbers with the quiet concentration of someone listening for a wrong note. One receivable aged 90 days. Another rolled into current revenue. A distribution contract booked before delivery. Small things. Almost elegant. "There," she said. Daniel leaned closer. "What?" Claire enlarged a line item. They recognized revenue early. "Mistake. Once, maybe." She clicked again. 4 times is a habit. Silence settled over the room. Daniel studied her, then smiled without warmth. "This is why I called you." Claire ignored the compliment. Her eyes remained on the screen. At 5:42, Margaret Hale joined by video. Silver hair. Charcoal jacket. The same woman who had watched Claire leave the gala. Claire did not recognize her immediately. Margaret did. "Mrs. Bennett," she said. "We almost met Saturday night." Claire looked up. "I'm sorry." Margaret's expression barely changed. "Another time." Then she authorized deeper access. Payroll. Executive compensation. Regional performance. Internal correspondence. The digital data room expanded across Claire's screen like a locked house, opening one door at a time. At 7:18, Daniel left to take a call. Claire remained alone. City lights trembled against the glass. She opened the employee directory, not searching for anyone, simply following a discrepancy tied to regional sales. Thousands of names loaded slowly. Then the system froze. One page remained half-rendered. Claire reached for her cold coffee. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan again. Take me to court if you want. I'm done discussing money with you." Claire read it once. Then the employee database refreshed. At the top of the screen appeared a division name. Regional Sales. Beneath it, hundreds of personnel records waited to open. Claire placed the phone face down. Somewhere inside those files was the reason Hale Meridian's numbers did not make sense. She clicked the folder. Long before anyone trusted Claire Bennett with millions, she had learned how to survive on $12 an hour and coffee that had gone cold. 2 years after the divorce, her mornings still began before sunrise. At 5:26, the apartment was blue with winter darkness. Claire stood barefoot in the kitchen, reviewing a restructuring report while bread browned in the toaster. At 6:10, she braided Sophie's hair. At 7:03, she scraped ice from the Honda windshield with an expired credit card because the plastic scraper had snapped the week before. By 8, she was inside a small accounting office above a pharmacy, reconciling invoices for companies whose owners rarely remembered her name. No one saw ambition in it. That was useful. Claire listened. She noticed which suppliers were paid twice, which managers buried losses beneath optimistic forecasts, which businesses were dying from problems no one important wanted to admit existed. At night, after Sophie slept, she studied corporate restructuring at the kitchen table, the same table where unpaid bills waited beneath a ceramic bowl. She completed the MBA she had abandoned years earlier, one course at a time. No photographs, no celebration, just a diploma arriving in a cardboard envelope on a Wednesday afternoon while Sophie ate cereal beside her. "Does this mean you're a boss now?" Sophie asked. Claire smiled. "It means I finished something." The first company she saved was a regional logistics firm called Northline Freight. 43 trucks, 2 warehouses, 91 employees. Its owner believed fuel prices were killing the business. Claire spent 6 nights inside the records and found something else. Duplicate vendor contracts, false overtime patterns, and a routing system wasting nearly $2 million a year. The boardroom had been filled with men who interrupted her until she placed one spreadsheet on the table. Then another. Then a third. By the time she finished, no one was speaking. Northline survived. 63 jobs that had been scheduled for elimination remained. Daniel Mercer called 3 days later. "You don't know me," he said. Claire balanced the phone against her shoulder while packing Sophie's lunch. "Then this is a strange time to ask for money." Daniel laughed once. "I'm not asking for money. I'm asking how you found $2.4 million everyone else missed." Claire closed the lunchbox. "I looked where they stopped looking." That answer bought her coffee with him. Coffee became contract work. Contract work became a seat in rooms where distressed companies were discussed like wounded animals. What could be saved? What had to be cut? What was already dead? Daniel never rescued her. Claire would have hated him for trying. He gave her access, capital, and difficult problems. She gave him answers. Now, in the Mercer Row conference room, those years sat invisibly behind her as Hale Meridian's records filled 3 screens. It was 1:17 in the morning. Her coffee had gone cold again. Daniel loosened his tie. "We can solve the debt problem by closing the Ohio distribution center." Claire kept reading. "How many employees?" 112. "And the savings?" 8.6 million annually. Claire clicked through shipping data. Silence. Then she shook her head. "No." Daniel leaned back. "No. Their problem isn't labor." She enlarged a freight map. Red lines crossed the Midwest like veins. "They're paying premium rates because regional sales is promising delivery windows operations can't meet." Daniel moved closer. Claire opened another report. "Fix the contracts. Renegotiate 3 carriers. Stop rewarding impossible volume." "Savings." Claire typed quickly. 11 million. Maybe 12. Daniel stared at the screen. Then at her. "And the warehouse. Keep it open." Outside the glass walls, the city slept beneath a black sky. Claire thought of 112 kitchens. 112 refrigerators humming in the dark. 112 families who would never know how close a spreadsheet had come to changing their lives. Her phone lit beside the keyboard. Ethan had posted a photograph. "Champagne. Lauren." A caption about earning everything you have. Claire turned the phone face down without opening it. Daniel watched her for a moment. "You want to tell me what that was?" "No." She returned to the Hale Meridian files. "I want deeper access to regional sales." Daniel nodded slowly. At 1:26, he sent the request. At 1:31, permission arrived. Claire opened the directory. Thousands of employee records loaded across the screen. She began scrolling. Some names arrive like memories. Others arrive like warnings. Claire found his on page 417. It was 2:08 in the morning when the payroll report finally finished loading. 38,000 employee records arranged beneath the pale glow of the conference room screens. Daniel had gone home an hour earlier. The cleaning crew moved silently beyond the glass walls, pushing vacuums across empty offices while snow began falling over the city. Claire had been tracing the regional sales discrepancies one division at a time. Northeast, Central, Southeast. She clicked another file. Compensation records appeared. Base salary, bonuses, expense allowances, executive incentives. Her eyes moved down the page with mechanical patience until one line stopped them. Bennett, Ethan R., Regional Sales Director. Claire did not move. The cursor blinked beside his name. Once, twice, 3 times. For a moment, the room seemed to lose sound. Then the ventilation system clicked overhead, and somewhere in the hallway a trash bag rustled. Claire leaned back slowly. Hale Meridian. The logo from Ethan's conference badge last spring. The company name printed beneath his promotion announcement. The place he had described at dinner years ago as the first company that finally understands what I'm worth. She had forgotten because forgetting him had become a kind of discipline. Now his salary sat in front of her. $218,000 base. Performance bonus eligible. Car allowance. Executive travel. Claire stared at the figures, then thought of Sophie taping her ballet shoe beneath the yellow kitchen light. 6 months without child support. She opened the payment history. Nothing. Her hand remained flat against the table. No trembling. No tears. Just stillness. At 2:14, she called Daniel. He answered on the 4th ring. Someone better be dead. Ethan works here. Silence. You're Ethan? He was never mine. Daniel exhaled. Claire. She closed her eyes briefly. Regional Sales Director. Walk away. Her eyes opened. What? We can remove you from the deal. Conflict exposure. Emotional risk. I'll handle it. Claire looked again at Ethan's compensation package. Then she clicked the regional performance folder. No, think carefully. I am. She opened quarterly revenue reports. The first discrepancy appeared within 4 minutes. A contract recognized before final delivery. Then another. Sales booked in December for shipments completed in January. Expense reimbursements approved through Ethan's division at unusual frequency. Luxury hotels. Client dinners without matching client codes. Claire's pulse slowed instead of rising. This was the part of her Ethan had never understood. Pain did not make her careless. It made her exact. Daniel, she said, I need the last 18 months of regional sales adjustments. Claire, if you're looking for a reason to destroy him, I'm looking for the truth. The words landed quietly. Daniel said nothing. Claire continued. If the numbers are clean, they stay clean. If they're not, we find out why. At 2:31, deeper access arrived. She worked until dawn. By 6, the snow had covered the rooftops white. Claire had identified 7 transactions requiring review, but nothing yet proved fraud. Nothing proved Ethan had personally ordered anything. She refused to invent guilt simply because guilt would feel satisfying. At 7:12, Daniel returned carrying 2 coffees. He placed one beside her and studied the screens. You stayed. Yes. Do you still want the company? Claire looked through the glass at the waking city. Somewhere below, thousands of people were beginning commutes to jobs Hale Meridian paid for. Drivers, warehouse workers, assistants, parents packing lunches before school. More than yesterday. Daniel followed her gaze. Why? Claire closed Ethan's payroll record. Because this company is worth saving. Her phone vibrated. A text from Ethan appeared. Big news coming. Looks like I'm finally getting the promotion I deserve. Claire read it once. Then another message followed. Maybe when that happens, I'll reconsider your money situation. Her face changed so little Daniel almost missed it. Claire placed the phone beside page 417. Do you want out? He asked again. She opened the acquisition model. No. Outside. Morning light spread across the snow. I want the numbers clean. There are debts a man refuses to pay because he has no money. And then there are debts he refuses to pay because he enjoys watching someone ask. Ethan chose Thursday evening to make his offer. Claire was standing outside Sophie's tutoring center when his name appeared on her phone. Snowmelt ran along the curb in thin gray streams. Through the glass doors, children moved beneath fluorescent lights with backpacks bouncing against their shoulders. Claire almost ignored the call. Then she answered. What? Ethan exhaled as if she had inconvenienced him. We need to discuss the Harrington program. Claire straightened. Sophie had been accepted into a specialized summer science course 3 weeks earlier. Because the program involved interstate travel, both parents had to sign. Ethan had not. I sent you the forms twice. I saw them, then signed them. A pause. Claire heard restaurant noise behind him. Glasses. Laughter. Lauren's voice somewhere distant. I'm willing to, Ethan said. Under one condition. Claire's fingers tightened around the phone. What condition? You drop the arrears. For a second, a bus passed between them and the street, its brakes sighing against wet pavement. Claire said nothing. Ethan continued, calm and almost reasonable. 6 months. We wipe it clean. You stop threatening court. I signed Sophie's papers tonight. Claire watched her daughter through the window. Sophie was kneeling beside another child, helping gather colored pencils from the floor. You're bargaining with your daughter's education. Don't dramatize it. That's what you're doing. His voice cooled. You need the signature. I need this harassment to stop. Adults compromise. Something hot moved through Claire's chest. Her thumb pressed so hard against the phone case that the edge hurt. She imagined every answer she could give him. Every truth. Every accusation. Then Sophie looked through the glass. And saw her. The child smiled. Claire smiled back. Send the offer through counsel, she said. Ethan laughed softly. Still pretending you can afford lawyers? Claire ended the call. At 8:40 that night, she sat across from Daniel in a private conference room while Hale Meridian nearly disappeared from her reach. The lender's withdrawal came in a 4-line email. Market exposure. Internal reporting concerns. Financing commitment suspended. Daniel read it twice, then pushed his chair back. We're short $26 million. Claire looked at the acquisition model. How long? 48 hours before Hale reopens bidding. On the screen, thousands of jobs had been reduced to columns. Debt, payroll, facilities. Claire's own capital sat in another file, money built slowly through years of consulting, equity stakes, and the Northline turnaround. Enough to change Sophie's life permanently. Enough for a house without knocking pipes. Enough never to check a grocery total again. Not enough to replace 26 million. Daniel studied her. We walk. Claire kept looking at the numbers. No, Claire. Restructure the bridge. We already did. She opened the Ohio facility projections. Then the carrier renegotiations. Then a dormant asset package Hale Meridian had undervalued. Sell the non-core real estate after close. Daniel leaned forward. That still leaves 9 million. Claire knew. The silence between them sharpened. Daniel's eyes moved to her personal capital schedule. Absolutely not. Claire closed the file. How much can Mercer Row extend? 5. I cover 4. Daniel stared at her. That's your reserve. I know. Sophie's reserve. Claire's face changed then, barely. Ethan's voice returned in her mind. You dropped the arrears. I sign tonight. She looked through the glass wall at the city lights and thought of all the ways fear could disguise itself as prudence. She doesn't need me to stay small for her, Claire said. At 11:53, the revised financing package went out. At 3:16 the next afternoon, Margaret Hale accepted. At 4:02, final documents arrived. Claire sat alone with a pen in her hand while her phone lit beside the signature page. Ethan, big promotion. Announcement next week. Maybe after that I'll reconsider helping you out. Claire read the message without blinking. Then she placed the phone face down. Daniel stood near the window. Margaret waited on the secure video line. Hundreds of pages rested before Claire, each one carrying the weight of warehouses, salaries, families, and one man who still believed money gave him the right to decide who deserved dignity. Ready? Daniel asked. Claire lowered the pen. Her signature moved cleanly across the page. Claire Bennett. At 4:07 p.m., the acquisition closed. Hale Meridian Group had a new controlling owner. Ethan did not know. He was still waiting for a promotion. The invitation arrived on cream paper, as if humiliation looked more respectable in gold ink. Hale Meridian Group, Annual Leadership Gala. Claire found it beneath a stack of acquisition documents on Monday morning. The event would announce the company's new strategic direction, recognize senior executives, and formally introduce the incoming ownership group. Daniel stood across from her desk. You don't have to attend. Claire read the date again. Friday. Ethan's promotion announcement. Yes, she said. I do. By 7 that evening, the Grand Ashcroft Ballroom glowed beneath 12 crystal chandeliers. A string quartet played near the marble staircase. Waiters moved through the crowd carrying champagne in narrow glasses. Claire arrived alone. No dramatic entrance. No cameras turning. She wore a black silk dress with clean lines, small diamond earrings, and the calm expression of a woman who had stopped asking rooms for permission. Her name did not appear on the public guest list. Not yet. Across the ballroom, Ethan saw her within 30 seconds. His smile froze, then returned sharper. Lauren stood beside him in silver satin. Claire. Ethan crossed the floor with a champagne glass in one hand. What are you doing here? Claire looked at him. Navy tuxedo. Silver watch. The same watch that had caught the chandelier light while Sophie's school payment failed. Attending. Ethan laughed. This is a corporate leadership event. I noticed. Lauren touched his arm. Maybe she came with someone. Ethan's eyes moved behind Claire, searching for a man. Claire almost smiled. He still believed a woman needed someone else's invitation to enter a room. You really shouldn't be here, he said quietly. Tonight matters to me. I know. Then don't make it awkward. Claire accepted a glass of sparkling water from a passing waiter. I wasn't planning to. Ethan leaned closer. My promotion is being announced in 20 minutes. Senior Vice President. So whatever this is, court pressure, money, another performance, save it. Claire's gaze rested on him for one silent beat. Congratulations. The word unsettled him more than anger would have. At 7:42, the lights dimmed. Employees gathered near the stage. Margaret Hale stepped to the microphone. Ethan straightened his jacket. Lauren lifted her phone, ready to record. Tonight, Margaret began. We recognize leadership during a period of extraordinary transition. Applause moved through the room. Ethan smiled. Margaret spoke of resilience, accountability, and the responsibility carried by those who controlled other people's livelihoods. Claire stood near the back beneath a column of soft amber light. Then the master of ceremonies announced Ethan's name. Applause rose again. He walked onto the stage with practiced humility. Lauren clapped above her head. Ethan accepted a glass plaque and turned toward the audience. Success, he began, comes from knowing when excuses have run out. Claire's fingers tightened once around her glass. He continued. Some people spend their lives blaming circumstances. Others build. A few executives nodded. Ethan's eyes found Claire at the back of the room. The pause was brief, but deliberate. I've learned, he said, smiling, that you can't carry people who refuse to stand on their own. Laughter came from one table, then another. Lauren lowered her eyes, smiling into her champagne. Claire did not move. The old pain arrived quietly. A kitchen at midnight. His presentation beneath her hands. Her mother's bracelet disappearing into a pawnshop drawer. Sophie taping a ballet shoe. 6 months of silence where support payments should have been. Ethan raised his glass. To earning your place. The room applauded. Claire set her water down. No anger. No speech. No accusation. Only a small movement as she straightened one cuff of her black dress. Then Daniel Mercer entered through the side doors with 3 attorneys behind him. Margaret Hale looked toward Claire. The chairman of the board stood. One by one, senior executives began turning away from Ethan. Daniel crossed the ballroom and stopped beside Claire. They're ready, he said. Ethan's smile disappeared. Claire lifted her eyes toward the stage. For the first time that evening, she allowed herself to look directly at him. Good, she said. Then Margaret returned to the microphone. And now, she announced, it is time to introduce the woman who owns the future of this company. Power rarely announces itself with a raised voice. Sometimes it simply walks toward the stage while everyone else forgets how to breathe. Claire crossed the ballroom beneath the chandeliers as Margaret Hale stepped away from the microphone. No applause followed at first. Only the soft strike of her heels against polished marble. Ethan remained beside his glass plaque, one hand still wrapped around the champagne he had raised to earning your place. His face held the expression of a man waiting for someone to explain the joke. Daniel walked 2 steps behind Claire. The attorneys followed. At the front table, the chairman rose fully to his feet. Then another board member stood. Then another. Claire reached the stage. Margaret extended her hand. Claire Bennett, she said into the microphone, controlling owner of Hale Meridian Group. The silence broke in pieces. A glass touched a table too hard. Someone whispered, Bennett? Lauren's phone lowered slowly. Ethan did not blink. Margaret continued. Through the acquisition completed last Friday, Ms. Bennett and her investment partners now hold controlling interest in this company. Applause began near the board tables. Cautious at first, then spreading. Claire shook Margaret's hand and turned toward the room. She did not look at Ethan immediately. That would have made the moment about him. Thank you, Claire said. Her voice carried cleanly through the ballroom. Hale Meridian employs people who deserve leadership worthy of their work. Our first responsibility is not appearance. It is accuracy, accountability, and trust. Ethan's fingers tightened around his glass. Claire saw it only from the corner of her eye. Beginning Monday, she continued, we will conduct a full review of regional sales practices, executive compensation structures, and revenue recognition procedures. The applause stopped. Several faces changed. Ethan's did not. Not yet. Then Daniel handed Margaret a slim black folder. Margaret opened it. There is one additional matter. Ethan finally looked toward Claire. She met his eyes. Nothing triumphant lived in her expression. That frightened him more. Mr. Bennett, Margaret said, your promotion is suspended pending review. The champagne glass lowered from Ethan's hand. Excuse me. His microphone was still live. The words crossed the room. Margaret's face remained calm. Your promotion is suspended. Ethan laughed once, too loudly. On what basis? Claire stepped away from the podium. She let Margaret answer. 7 transactions involving premature revenue recognition. Expense irregularities. Delivery commitments made outside operational capacity. Ethan looked around as if someone would rescue him. That's ridiculous. Those practices were approved. Then the review will establish that, Claire said. His head turned sharply. You. The single word carried years inside it. Claire remained still. Ethan descended 1 step toward her. You bought this company because of me? A murmur moved through the ballroom. Lauren touched his sleeve. He pulled away. Claire looked at the man who had once told her she had built nothing. No, don't lie. I bought a company worth saving. Ethan's face reddened. This is revenge. Claire's eyes did not leave his. If it were revenge, I wouldn't need evidence. That silenced him. Daniel placed another document on the podium. Claire did not touch it. Your employment review is a corporate matter, she said. Your unpaid child support is not. Ethan's expression changed. For the first time, fear appeared without disguise. Claire continued quietly. My attorney filed the enforcement motion this morning. The room seemed to contract around him. You said you couldn't afford, he stopped. Too late. Claire heard the unfinished sentence. So did Lauren. So did three executives standing nearest the stage. Ethan looked down. The silver watch flashed beneath the chandelier. Claire thought of Sophie's cracked molar, the taped ballet shoe, the school deposit. She felt no satisfaction, only a strange, clean distance. I could afford it, she said. I was waiting to see what kind of father you chose to be without consequences. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing came. Claire turned toward Margaret. Continue the gala. Then she stepped down from the stage. Behind her, the quartet began again, uncertainly at first. Ethan remained beneath the lights with his suspended promotion plaque in one hand. Claire walked past him without slowing. He had spent 6 months refusing to support his daughter. Now, for the first time, he understood who signed the checks that paid his salary. The morning after a man loses control is often quieter than the night he realizes it. At 6:41, Claire stood in her kitchen while sunlight moved slowly across the floor. Sophie sat at the table eating toast, one sock on, one sock missing, reading a permission form with the seriousness of a contract attorney. Mom. Dad signed it. Claire turned. Sophie held up the Harrington Science Program form. Ethan's signature rested at the bottom in blue ink. No condition. No bargain. No message. Claire looked at it for a moment, then poured milk into Sophie's glass. Good. Sophie smiled. So I can go? You can go. The child threw both arms around her before Claire could set the carton down. Milk splashed across the counter. Sophie laughed. Claire closed her eyes and held her. That was the victory, not the ballroom, not Ethan's face beneath the chandeliers. This, a child allowed to be excited without learning the price of adult cruelty. 3 weeks later, the family court order arrived. Ethan was required to pay the full arrears, ongoing support, Sophie's outstanding medical expenses, and a portion of legal fees. Claire read the order once in Rebecca Sloane's office, signed the acknowledgement, and slipped the papers into a plain folder. You could pursue additional sanctions, Rebecca said. Claire looked through the window at people crossing the street below. Will it help Sophie? Rebecca considered the question. Probably not. Then no. At Hale Meridian, the internal review continued. 7 questionable transactions became 11. Yet Claire refused every suggestion that Ethan be dismissed simply because dismissing him would feel satisfying. She appointed an independent committee. External auditors examined the records. Witnesses were interviewed. Emails were recovered. The truth arrived without drama. Ethan had not created the accounting irregularities, but he had approved delivery promises he knew operations could not meet, pressured staff to accelerate bookings, and signed expense reports that violated company policy. Enough for consequences, not enough for invention. His title was reduced. His bonus was canceled. He remained employed under a performance plan. Daniel read the decision twice. You're keeping him? Claire closed the file. I bought a company, not an executioner's chair. Months passed. The Ohio warehouse stayed open. Carrier contracts were renegotiated. Hale Meridian returned to stable cash flow. 112 families never knew how close they had come to losing Friday paychecks. Claire preferred it that way. On a warm June afternoon, she stood outside Sophie's school as buses lined the curb for the Harrington program. Children shouted through open windows. Parents took too many photographs. Sophie climbed the steps, then turned suddenly. Mom. Claire looked up. What? You forgot to be sad. Claire laughed. I'll try harder. Sophie waved and disappeared inside. Across the parking lot, Ethan stood beside his car. No tuxedo. No champagne. No Lauren. Just a pale blue shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He had come to see Sophie leave. For several seconds, neither he nor Claire moved. Then Ethan crossed the pavement. The first arrears payment cleared, he said. I saw. He looked toward the bus. I was angry at you. Claire said nothing. After the divorce, I told myself you were punishing me, that the money was for you. The bus engine started. Claire watched Sophie's face appear behind the glass. It was never for me. Ethan lowered his eyes. I know that now. Claire could have reminded him of the watch, the dental bill, the taped ballet shoe. She could have told him what 6 months of fear had cost. Instead, she adjusted the strap of her handbag. Then do better now. No forgiveness speech. No reunion. No promise that regret erased damage. Ethan nodded once. The bus pulled away. Sophie waved wildly through the window. Claire lifted her hand. When she turned back, Ethan was still standing there, smaller somehow, not because she had defeated him, but because she no longer needed him to lose. That evening, Claire entered the Hale Meridian headquarters after most employees had gone home. Sunset burned gold against the glass towers. On her desk rested the first quarterly report under new ownership. Profit restored. Jobs protected. Debt reduced. Beside it sat a photograph Sophie had drawn in marker. 2 figures holding hands beneath an enormous yellow sun. Claire placed it against the window. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Support payment sent early. Claire read it, locked the screen, and returned to the report. Outside, the city lights came alive one by one. She had not won him back. She had not needed to destroy him. She had simply built a life so complete that his refusal could no longer define its shape. And somewhere between the woman who once sold her mother's bracelet to save his future and the woman now signing the future of thousands, Claire had finally understood the truth. She didn't win him back. She won herself.